You have function on this podcast.
No. I'm just here. I'm just decoration.
Hello, welcome to the Yaoi Shelf.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you all for your patience as we took a small break after CitrusCon.
We've had a break.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, but my life has just been, like this train going at full speed with no stops. I don't know. It doesn't feel like I've had a break from anything. Let's be honest.
I love it when you get glimpses of how busy my actual schedule is just on a daily basis.
I don't have the function to do this. I am so tired.
I love when you get glimpses of how I just live my life.
How do you do this? Because, honestly, I am so dead. And, don't get me wrong, I had a good Pride week, but I've said, this town that I live in is there will be nothing happening culturally until September.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything happens in September, preferably in the same week, which is also Pride Week. Yep. So I've just been running around like a psychopath, working events and also attending events. And I'm just can we maybe spread it out a little, do we really need to do everything in this week?
Yes.
Apparently. I'm so tired. I don't understand how people have a job. Yes, looking at you.
Hello.
Oh my god!
I go to job, I go to gym, I come home, I work on this podcast, I work on my other podcast, I work on my blog, and then I write my fan fiction.
How? How do you do this? Because I have 2 spoons. And that's it. I can do 2 things a day. And usually those two things are
or read yaoi.
No, I don't even have time. I don't even do that. So what I do, I'll get up and force myself to work out. That's 1 spoon.
Okay,
and
that's
then
good.
I have to go walking, and I try to do my errands as I walk. That's my other spoon.
Okay.
And then I can't do anything. So if I have an event,
there's no more spoons.
So I have to drop either the workout or the walk. And I'm just dead. So this entire week, I've been sleeping and then going to the event and then coming home and then falling asleep. And then I've been doing preparations for the things that I helped organize and then sleeping in between that. So I'm just I don't know what day it is.
Carola stares at my schedule and just screams.
Yeah. I actually did do some reading this week because
you did.
I did because 1, I had to read for the cursed content event we were organizing at the library.
Yes.
And then I also did some other reading.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Segue.
Yeah, good segue. Good segue. Yeah. So welcome to the Yaoi Shelf. Grab a seat and relax. I'm going to save the Patreon plug for the episode because this month we're talking about queer representation in yaoi. And we also have a sponsor this month.
We do.
I'm so excited. Thank you, Filthy Figments.
Thank you
for sponsoring the show. Longtime fan. Very long-time fan.
Ooh.
So this is great. So thank you to Filthy Figments for sponsoring this episode. Listen, we're going to talk a lot about some bad and less than ideal representation in queer media. Fortunately for you, Filthy Figments is full of some of our favorite webcomics and works written by diverse queer creators.
Yes.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Filthy Figments has over 1,500 pages of diverse, kinky comics created by queer voices from all around the world. You'll not only find what you've been looking for, but you'll discover more along the way. Have a taste of their free comic samples or check out the spicy ebooks in the shop. Or subscribe and never go hungry again, enjoying fresh comic pages all month long. Check them out at filthyfigments.com. Again, that's filthyfigments.com.
Yes. Nice radio voice.
Thank you. the moments of the show where Carola just gets to sit back and be like, she's listening to an old-timey broadcast.
Yeah, I was enjoying that. I was also thinking about how right you are in the whole, you'll discover more along the way. Because I was almost late for this podcast because I kept, I was reading comics.
That's literally Filthy Figments. That was like, you'll start one, you'll finish one, and be like, there's more.
Yeah. And you have a little page you can click on for that creator and see their other stuff. So I was like, let's go.
So thank you, Filthy Figments, for sponsoring.
Thank you.
We are so excited for this sponsorship.
We are.
And let's move on with the show. But before we move on with the show, wait, haven't we talked about this representation shit a million times?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe a little.
But I think the big thing is that we have been talking about representation as this like abstract specter, don't I?
I'm sorry.
We just had a lovely ad read that I'm going to add to my voice reel.
Yeah. And then I'm just like, this is why you're doing the ad reel, because I'm just like choking in the background. I cannot believe I'm still laughing.
I just did one of the best ad reads of my life, and you're over here just dying.
I'm just like wheezing. I am struggling so hard. I'm going to go to the pharmacy tomorrow and get that medication.
Yes! Oh! Okay, I retract what I said earlier, blaming your doctor. This is your fault.
But I mean, I didn't think I'd actually need the asthma medication for whatever was wrong.
Stop, collaborate, and listen. Okay, I was blaming your doctor for insufficiently caring for you. It's your fault.
Did you just quote Vanilla Ice?
I did.
I didn't catch anything you said after that because my brain started playing Ice Ice Baby.
This is what you got when you signed up for a forced marriage with me. Did you know this is what you were signing up for?
No, I didn't know anything. I went in blind.
We both did.
Having a great time, actually.
But yes, we have talked about representation before in very like vague and abstract terms, focusing especially on like representation of race and culture. And we've dipped our toes into talking about specifically queer representation. But I feel like for both of us, we've always had such a hard time really hitting the nail on the head with it. Just because, especially with our backgrounds, it always feels a little difficult to talk about. Especially, Carola is much better at this because she's been reading stuff that was written after 2011, unlike me. Or I'm just reading the same Twittering Birds manga every other week.
I mean, to be fair, that is more recent than 2004. So, like,
I've just been over here rereading Twittering Birds Never Fly every other week. So Carola's a lot better at this than I am, but especially being African American, I really just stopped trying to engage with representation at all in BL and Yaoi. So I wasn't always the best person to talk about it. Where I'm great at it is when we talk about like webcomics, like with the Filthy Figments tie-in, and with American comics that fans or creators turn gay. I have a much easier time talking about it when it's Western properties who, in theory, should have a better grasp of people that are not white and people that live different lifestyles, in theory, than expecting Japan to write a compelling black narrative.
Yeah.
And not the Jano Subete scene.
Please. I can't believe I didn't get to bring up Jano Subete during the Cursed Content event on Friday.
You brought up Death by Dragon Fucking, you didn't bring up the racist gangbang and Jano Subete.
No, but I was going to, but time ran away from us, and somehow we ended up getting very stuck on the popcorn blowjob scene from Playboy the series. And if you don't know about that, then good for you.
We're going to talk about this off camera, because otherwise we're going to be here all fucking day.
Oh, true. Yes.
I'm going to put a pin in that. We're going to talk about that off camera.
I have screenshots. It is something.
We would be here all day, and we have a nice sponsor, and we're doing a nice episode.
I'm sorry in advance, Filthy Figments. We love you.
We're trying to do a nice episode. A nice professional episode. And you're over here talking about popcorn blowjobs.
Father Amanda, just like, we're trying to do the right thing.
Father as dad or father as priest?
Both.
Inches closer to Wolfwood cosplay. I already have the mostly black wardrobe.
I am so stressed about our costume live.
You have $30 more.
Yeah, but I don't know what we're doing.
We don't either. The patrons decide that.
No, and that's why I'm stressed, because I have to order stuff, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I am on the edge of the world.
Patrons, we will be giving you guys options for our costumes this week.
Remember that if we get enough money, Amanda will let me do the Loveless cosplay.
Amanda's only going to make one option. It's going to be fashionable. Amanda's only going to list one option, and that's it. That's all you have.
No, but what about the emo trash? Emo trash.
What did I say about us having a nice episode?
I'm sorry, I'll shut up. For the rest of this episode, Amanda will be talking by herself.
For the rest of this episode, Amanda will be talking. Carola will be in the corner quiet. Yes, or we can do very, very curse small goth Toten.
Yes.
Okay. Now, representation.
Yes, let's go.
So, for the millionth time, as we talk about representation in BL and Eastern works, Carola, also, you didn't respond to my note where I made a reference to a musical.
No, because I knew it was going to make you upset, because I've never actually watched it. I know. I'm getting there.
We're going to talk about this off camera, too. Oh. But let's love
I was afraid of replying, because I was like, you're going to be mad.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, that's even worse, actually.
The makeup just makes it so much more.
I'm sorry. I did watch a video essay on it recently.
Okay, that's fair. That's good enough. But let's level with you. Say it with us. Japan and the East, as a whole, hasn't had the best track record of queer representation. Caveat, Carola, do you want to say things are getting better?
Yes. And I think I did write in some notes on that further down, maybe?
Yes, you did. I was ready to end this on everything is trash, and then Carola swooped in on an eagle and was like, there's some good, actually.
There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. No, but truly, I mean, and again, like the mandatory disclaimer that we have to remember cultural contexts and cultural differenses. So what equals representation to us as Westerners, and, you know, to me as a Norwegian versus you as an American versus, you know, someone in Japan or Thailand or Korea or whatever, is not going to be the same thing.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And I also...
So, you know...
No, go ahead.
No, you know, when you were saying... when you were talking about, like, for instance, the Western perspectives, you know, earlier, that just... it's not... You know... Or actually, it wasn't even the Western perspectives. It's, like, you know, looking for representation in BL. Like, I've never really done that because, you know, I'm reading it because I think it's fun, because I find enjoyment in it. I think it's very exciting when I do find good representation or, you know, activism or, you know, like it's actually doing something to kind of enlighten the readers. But especially with the cultural climate we're in, where, you know, with the Western perspective on everything, where especially the younger generations are demanding that everything be representative for everyone, I've just started looking even less for it in particularly Japanese media, because I'm so tired of hearing people who don't have, you know, they don't have the age and experience and cultural understanding to see why the representation they are looking for might not be from Japan. Yeah,
Or
exactly.
China. Yeah.
Yeah.
And segue into what I was going to say, which is I also think it's important to start that Carola and I both approach representation in a more abstract way, that we definitely very much have our roots in 90s and early 2000s BL, where representation wasn't about a 1-to-1 match. I did not need to look like Yuki Eri to relate to him and feel represented by him.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say representation, we mean that older version, that we found something within a character that connected, not I found me. Like fucking Where's Waldo? I found me in this manga.
Like, just because Shuichi and I are roughly the same person, I do not really feel represented by him. We just happen to... we have a lot of similarities, which is part why I love him. But
I think maybe my background in comics helped out with that a lot. Because there's a lot of characters I feel represented by, I feel like fit me like a glove.
Yeah.
That look nothing like me, but through similar experiences, similar coping mechanisms or lack thereof coping mechanisms, and the like, I still feel represented by them. So I think it's important to cover that we also have a pretty open view of what representation looks, feels, and sounds like.
Yeah.
And especially being Black, I have never opened up any work hoping to be like, there I am! That's me! I've never done that, even with works written by Black authors.
And I mean, I think that's really hard because, you know, no, I've said this so many times, but like no group of people is a monolith. We're not, you know, we're not a hive mind, not as queer people, you know, not as whatever nationality you are, whatever, you know, skin color you have, whatever, you know, whatever you identify yourself as. Your experience is never going to be one-to-one to someone else's. And like, even if you do find representation, be that queer representation, mental health representation, whatever, in a character, all of the things that character goes through and experiences and expresses is not going to match your personal experience. That's not how it works.
No, absolutely not. And I think the other big thing to mention, and we'll probably talk about this more in Patreon, not all representation has to be good.
Yeah.
I know, at least from Carola and I's talks, some of our favorite characters that we have felt seen by are absolute hot trash.
I love trash.
I also love trash. That's why we relate to them, because we're made of the same thing. Trash.
And can someone just like make us some like raccoon ears that we can wear?
for when we do Shigaraki and Dog.
Oh my god, yes! Oh, that would be amazing!
No, please don't encourage her. Oh.
No, come on, you'd love it. Can you imagine? We'd be so cute.
We would be really cute.
We would be so cute.
So I think those are necessary caveats before we go into the next part of this show. Hey, Carola, remember in the 90s and in the early 2000s when representation wasn't very good in BL?
No, I've mostly blocked it out of my memory. No, yes, I do.
Let's start with one of our favorites that we've seen even in modern series, the mandatory cross-dressing episode.
Yep, the mandatory cross-dressing episode. Which, you know, I'm just going to put it out there. I am a child of my time, and I don't necessarily hate it. I still get a little, like, cute of excitement when one of my favorite characters has to cross-dress for the culture festival or whatever. It makes me happy.
So I like it on paper, pun not intended. What I hate, and especially this is being like a bisexual that struggled with bisexuality, is the mandatory, like, full existential crisis that comes after it. For one or both parties. Like, do I like girls? Should I actually be a girl? What is girl? It's like, okay, listen.
You know, which is, I am probably going to reference gravitation so many times in this episode. When am I not? But one of my favorite things in Gravitation is, Shuichi does that. He goes through that, right? He falls in love with 80, he goes home with him, they have sex, and then he shows up at his house in a schoolgirl uniform, because like in his head, he's like, okay, clearly this is something I need to do to make him love me, or whatever the hell he's thinking. And then he's standing there in this uniform. He's shaved every inch of his body, which he does tell us because he's thoughtful like that. And he's standing in front of Yuki, like screaming at him, "Is it because I'm a man?" And Yuki's like, "When did I ever say I didn't like you because you were a man?" Like, and I think that is one of the most beautiful scenes, because it's like, fucking thank you. This is the opposite of what everyone else was doing, which, was the whole, but you're a man. But he was like, yes, you are a man.
We're going to talk about that. That's only 2 points down.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that more, so I'm going to cut you off there.
Yeah. But
we both have a lot of thoughts on that trope. We could spend a while there. But yeah, there's always this mandatory cross-dressing episode. And I remember when we, oh my gosh, was it Sojo Sunday that we guested on, where we talked about Sasaki and Miyano? And they had like the mandatory cross-dressing episode. And I just remember like, this is so tired to me. Why are we still doing this in the year of our Lord 2024? And it's still the same breakdown as far as we've come with gender nonconformance and everything like that. Because you know what? Being very, very, very forgiving. I can understand how in the 90s this was like a revolutionary concerning thing. To me, we are just so far beyond that. And I get it. It's a trope. BLs are going to trope. I'm not mad at it. Like, this isn't an indictment on Sasaki and Miyano. No. But, like, I remember when we hit it, I was just so fucking tired.
Yeah, no, but I felt that too. And, like, I think there are parts of Sasaki and Miyano I really, really like. And again, I haven't read the manga yet because I'm just hoarding it. Because why doesn't anything end anymore? They just keep going. I just want to read these things, like, please think of my attention span. But I was like, oh, this again, because we've seen it so many times. And I think especially, I'm going to try not to like bleed too much into the next point on the timeline, because they're both, because these two are related.
Neck and neck.
Yeah. But there's also that, the whole, the whole like conflicting of like gay men and women, and like I think a lot of the time that especially early BL, and especially the way that I think maybe we as a younger Western audience kind of conflated the messages as well. But there's that, the gay man is a replacement for the woman, like BL reproduces heterosexual relationships, which isn't really necessarily what it's doing, because it's subverting a lot of things. It's, it is a fantasy, but you have that thing where a lot of times a character who was gay, like a male character who's gay, was basically a woman. So by having them cross-dress, actually Shuichi cross-dresses twice, because there is when he dresses up in that terrible outfit he wears when he's going to get married to Yuki.
I was going to say all of Shindo's outfits are terrible. But...
I love that boy. Don't talk to me. No, but like, it was that whole thing where if you were a gay man, you were basically a woman. So like, you think that being attracted to a man, oh, that must mean you're going to cross-dress.
Right. Or that puts you in the woman's place.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily... But I think a lot of it obviously has to do with fan service.
Yes.
And cross-dressing is huge. Like, it's a huge part of Japanese pop culture, and it goes both ways, right?
It does.
Because you do the same with, women dressing up as princess, and bufflers and whatever. Like, there are so many hot women characters.
Everyone has their Utena moment where it's like, oh my god!
Oh! And I mean, me, every time I look at a female character who does that, I'm like, I don't know if I am attracted to that person or if it's just that I want to be them, because I just, that is the gender for me.
The whole reason Carola wants me to dress up as Austria again.
Yes. Actually, no homo though, but just like for my aesthetics.
Okay, your wife isn't listening. Your wife isn't listening, but good to know.
I hope not.
Hashtag no homo.
Hashtag no homo. I'm just putting it out there. One
thing, and we talked about Fix It at CitrusCon. One thing I like about fan works is that they often take that mandatory cross-dressing episode and make it gender euphoric or gender affirming.
Yeah.
That shit I love, because I remember the first time I put on a binder. Oh my God. I felt like I was a whole new being born. And I don't struggle much with dysphoria at all. I quite like my giant tits. But the first time I put on a binder was just like, I have opened up a new world of who I can be.
Yeah. No, I felt that too. Like, I used to wear, and I don't like, I mean, I can't say I don't have any gender issues because clearly there's something here. But like, I used to only bind for cosplay, and then I would lament that, my clothes all the time. Like, my clothes look better on a flat chest.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why don't I just do this on a daily basis? And now I bind 90% of the time. It's not because I don't, I'm perfectly okay being a woman. Like, I identify as a cis woman, but I would like to have a flat chest.
Yeah.
And that is, like, gender euphoria can come in so many, so many packages. And like, you can have gender dysphoria even without having, or like, you can have dysphoria because that's why, that's why people have body image issues, like.
Correct.
I don't know. I feel like I got lost.
It's okay. It's okay.
Like, God damn it.
Like, I think that's one of the things I love about, Fix It and fan works is that fan works often take that mandatory cross episode and make it a moment of gender euphoria or gender discovery. It's not that we're mad in the mandatory cross-dressing episode. We're mad at the reductive way it keeps getting brought up.
Yeah. And, I want to, before I forget it, I want to bring up a series that is airing right now that is doing a very good job at kind of tackling all of this, which is, Senpai wa Otoko no Ko.
Yes.
Which is, it's not, it's not a BL, but it's like, I don't know how you would frame it, but I feel like it speaks to so many different kinds of people, because you have, like, the main trio. So there's the main character who is assigned, he's assigned male at birth, but he dresses like a girl, and he doesn't seem, I'm going to use he because that's the pronouns that he uses in the series, but like, he doesn't seem to know exactly where he wants to go with his gender, but he's a lot happier when he cross-dresses, as he puts it, right? And then he has this kind of like this relationship with his childhood best friend, who is a boy, and who, is kind of going through this, am I crushing on him because he dresses like a girl? Do I also like him when he dresses as a boy? And it's like, it's exploring all of these things, and it's so much more than just that, oh, hot guy cross-dresses and everyone loves him because he looks pretty as a girl, because it's really letting the characters like delve into how they think about gender and how they think about themselves in respect to their own and other people's gender. So I think it's a very interesting, like, and it's like, it's so refreshing, and it's such a good series, and I love them so much. They're such good kids.
And there's definitely, I think things have gotten better when it comes to the mandatory cross-dressing episode, just as again, we're getting more Western perspectives on this stuff, because I know, like, a lot of my friends who also have gender stuff feel the exact same way. They start really cross-dressing for cosplay, which again, we talk about like in the Fujin pipeline, where, you put on your first blonde wig and dress up as your favorite problematic 90s BL character, and suddenly your life feels right.
Yeah. A moment of silence for everyone who once was a cis-het girl.
I was so convinced that I was cis and straight for so long.
And it's like, all of the signs just
just
blaring in the background, and you're just like, no, this is fine.
Every sign that I was going to end up exactly what I am right now. Writing bat-cessed fanfic in the middle of the night.
I was such a gay child. I don't understand.
When I was a little kid, we were playing on the playground. I was in elementary school, and we were playing Sailor Moon, and I said I wanted to be Tuxedo Mask.
Who, by the way, is the most useless man to have ever existed. I love it so much.
No one got to investigate that further.
Right, but like one of the things we did this week, like we had one of like a very popular like podcast for kids came to the library for one of the events I worked at, and they are like queer icons. So they did a Pride special live from the library. And they were talking about this exact thing. So one of the hosts, she was like talking about how, oh, you know, she wasn't gay as a kid. Thinks back, and it's like whenever they were playing, you know, like playing house, like at school, it was like they wouldn't even finish the sentence. One of us has to be the dad, because she would be like, I volunteer. I'm fine. Like I wasn't a gay kid. Looks back is like. Always wanted to be the male boyfriend who nobody ever wanted to play.
Literally every conversation me and Carola have, I wasn't a gay kid, literally says the gayest thing possible.
Oh my god. I mean, I went by a boy's name. It was the only way my parents could get my attention. I don't it's like, how? This is so funny to me.
Speaking of boy names, do you want to talk about the 90s and early 2000s concept of transgender characters?
I'm not sure I want to, but I guess we'll have to since it's in the outline. There is a name just blaring in the back of my mind, but I don't.
Does it start with a Y?
Unfortunately, I don't want to go back there. When are we going to give her own episode?
Okay, if we tried to give Yoshiki Kitazawa her own episode, it would be an hour and a half of silence, punctuated by the occasional bout of laughter and then incredibly exasperated sigh.
But you'll also, you'll have to have like a board with a timeline, because we're still trying to figure out that timeline.
Yeah, so we'll have like our murder board.
Yeah.
Where we try to figure everything out. And then it's just an hour and 30 minutes of mostly silence, punctuated by random bouts of laughter, and then just the most exasperated, tired noises. Because we have been trying to rationalize Yoshiki Kitazawa for Check's Notes 20 years.
You know, you saying Yuki Kitazawa instead of Yoshiki, which was exactly what my brain did, makes me... Here's a theory. They're just the same person. He just faked his death and came back as his own sister.
You just made my boy slut Airy fix so much more interesting.
You're welcome? Question mark?
Is horrified.
I mean, it's plausible! Because that explains the child!
Has never been more horrified in her life. But
I hate it here! Oh no! No, but actually I'm intrigued now. Like, we should look into that.
Okay. I don't want to, because the implications of that for the entire series, I think, end with Eri throwing himself off Tokyo Tower.
No, he's fine. He's a married man now. It's okay.
And married men never have mental illness problems.
Shush!
So we have to talk about Yoshiki Kitazawa and other trans characters.
I feel like Yoshiki Kitazawa just blocks out everyone else from my memory. So let's just deal with her, and then...
Okay, can we not just say, let's just deal with her like it's threatening?
No, but like, you know, it's like, I just want to preface this with saying that, okay, I am a cis person. So, you know, I cannot talk, I cannot speak to the trans experience. Mm-hmm. And my friends who are trans or otherwise, you know, gender non-conforming in some way, you know, not cis, all have different experiences and different ways of expressing gender. So, like, I just want to point out that, even when Yoshiki Kitazawa does things like talking about, like dead naming herself and using using male pronouns for herself, talking about
less than ideal language to describe bodies.
Yeah. Using, talking about her own body, dressing up as her brother, seemingly being okay with kind of like going into a male persona. I mean, all of that, I feel like, all of that can be valid because some trans people are okay with talking about, their past, or like,
Well,
don't have issues like dressing traditionally male or female,
And you brought up a lot of things that actually kind of keyed back to my experience with it, which gender non-conforming sometimes, definitely non-binary, very gender fluid, that I feel like a character, especially like Yoshiki Kitazawa, is really held back by just the time period they were written. I think if another writer right now wrote a character like that, it would probably be one of the most interesting and complex characters in the story. So I really do give credit to, literally, unfortunately, Yoshiki Kitazawa is a trailblazer, but also very much is hurt by
exactly
in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, which, is what I was getting at, because because of how little understanding and knowledge most people had about trans identities in the 90s and early 2000s, this kind of, call it representation or like depiction. I think depiction is a better picture, because I don't think she's supposed to be representing anyone but herself, honestly. But like that, it's so damaging, because whenever you see an unfortunate presentation or incarnation of a minority anywhere in the media, it reflects badly on the rest of the community.
It does. And that's, I think, the frustrating part, because as you were talking, it was almost like formulating in my head, Yoshiki would be great gender fluid representation, because I actually see a lot of myself in Yoshiki. Because, again, like that fluid nature, like, they really can't dead name me, because both my male name and my female name are valid. I'm female presenting literally 99% of the time. Like, I don't experience a ton of dysphoria, so even if I'm having a male day, if you use she, her, I'm not offended.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like, again, if someone else took on this mantle, if I got, I don't know, really fucking drunk and decided I was going to rewrite Gravitation, I feel like someone could do something better with this character. I think also just the trope in general about characters being transgender in the 90s and early 2000s. A lot of it was a plot device by gay men to sleep with het men, which we don't have time to unpack that.
And that is exactly like when I do my Gravitation panel, and I have to go through, I have to mention her, Yoshiki Kitazawa. I say a lot of the same things, because I think she's an interesting character, and I think that, she, for what it's worth, she is some sort of trailblazer, but I really, but I don't like the way she's used, because I feel like she, it's one of those things where, she's a shock factor, and like her entire identity, and like so many other trans characters at the time, their identities are used either as, like a shock factor, they're like a gag character, they are used in very disrespectful ways to push the plot forward, and like, sure, she could be used to push the plot, and it's like, and in her case, just as a side note, it doesn't only reflect terribly on her and her transness, but just the fact that the way she goes into quote unquote heal Yuki's trauma in the most unhinged, absolutely not accepted in any medical term.
We read 10 count.
Yes. And Kuroseriku probably also. There are some some questions about where he
Some?
I love it. Listen, I love that man.
There's
but like I said,
some questions.
I just, and as far as like,
that is attractiveness bias. I know. No, you are full of shit. If I called you tomorrow and said my therapist is trying to dig me down to heal me, you would be upset.
Yes, but here's the thing, which I've said before, and I'm not necessarily saying that this is in defense of Kurosa. The only thing I can say in defense of that man is that he's beautiful, and I would probably do whatever he said. However, I just want to point out that he isn't actually Shirotane's therapist. He finds him in an elevator, so he's not actually his patient. They don't actually he doesn't pay him.
Did Yoshiki Kitazawa get her license from DeVry online?
She didn't have a license, which is
no one is licensed. You can't bring that up if you're going to go back 10 count.
Which is exactly what I'm saying. Like, Kurosa has a license. Maybe he's better with his actual patients.
What is the license in?
I don't know. Not what he's doing with Shirotane, I think. But but that's different because they aren't actually in a doctor-patient relationship, really, because they don't. Because he's not actually his therapist.
I hope you enjoyed this hole you're digging.
Yoshiki Kitazawa isn't even a therapist. She just goes into that room, scares Yuki half to death, and she's like, my job here is done. And I was like, girl, no. This is not how we deal with trauma.
Next Halloween costume, dressing up as Yuki Kitazawa.
Oh my god.
But a lot of these characters are written exactly as shock factor, as plot points, as not so flattering ways in depictions of the queer community as a whole, because a lot of it, especially male to female, seems to be en route to sleep with straight men, which we talked about a lot during the Antique Bakery episode of how problematic that trope is. Not to say that it isn't realistic, not to say that it isn't true, but when you blow it out of proportion like that in fiction, it's quite damaging.
Yeah. And then there's also, again, going back to the previous point in the in the outline, that, again, it's that confusion between, you're a queer man, therefore you are effeminate, so you actually want to be a woman, and that's not how that works.
Yes. And I do want to say, obligatory moment where we're not just saying Japan is transphobic. I've been watching a lot of old Law and Order SVU, and the way that they talk about trans people on SVU. How was the show on the air for so long?
I've never watched that, but I can probably, supplement with other things that I have seen.
And it's like the City does it. Like a lot of shows of that era were doing the same thing. So we're not trying to dogpile on Japan. Like, Japan's transphobic. They do have their issues, as does right now the US, who has no moral high ground anywhere.
And everyone, because I'm just thinking, if you look at 90s and 2000s media, there are so few good representations of trans characters that aren't, fetishized or made for laughs, or, to shock, or, trauma porn or whatever. Like, there are all, or, just like as a laughing stock.
Yes.
And so the only kind of good representation, or I don't know if you could call it good representation, but good depiction. I can't remember her name, but in Twin Peaks, of all things, Twin Peaks.
I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember her name, but when she comes in, they don't make a deal out of it at all. She just exists. And then there's that one episode where she does cross-dress as a man for whatever, for whatever
reason.
Yeah, she's trying to, because she's like a cop. She's trying to catch the criminal. Yes. But and then the main, I cannot remember the name of a single Twin Peaks character that isn't Laura Palmer. I'm sorry, or the Log Lady. but but the main character, he's confused for a second, and then she's like, "It's me. I'm just dressed like a man," and he's like, "Oh," and and it's like, why is that the only positive
representation?
Because that was so natural. It was done so well. I feel was it perfect? Probably not. But what
was perfect? And I think that's where, again, we've gotten a lot better. We are starting to see Eastern depictions of characters that are gender nonconforming, that are transgender, and we are getting more thoughtful conversations about that, which I do appreciate. There is a part of me that, I don't want to say I'm nostalgic for the messiness of the 90s and the 2000s, but I'm probably more empathetic towards it than the average reader, because I think about people like Buck Angel, whose like whole gimmick was he was the man with a pussy. Like that was his whole thing. And like now he's very much a trans medicalist, that you can only be transgender if you experience crippling dysphoria that leads to surgery, and he's made some allies that are less than ideal. But I think about like Buck Angel, I think about like RuPaul, when they talk about gender, when they talk about sex, when they talk about the almost intrinsic link between being a cross-dresser and prostitution, that it's like that's such a product of their time. It doesn't make it okay when they say things that are off kilter, staring directly at Buck Angel when he says anything fucking trans medicalist. But like in that time, that was the only way to be transgender, was to medically transition, experience horrifying dysphoria until that moment, and then to live your life as seamlessly as a cis presenting person as possible. So I'm probably a little bit more empathetic than I need to be about some of these characters. And it might just be because of the fluidity of my own gender.
But we are also products of our time. And like we can't escape the fact that although a lot of this was terrible representation written by people who had no idea what they were talking about, because they also lacked the knowledge and the resources, and where were they gonna get it? The internet barely existed. Nobody talked about it. Like I learned, again, everything I know about queer identities, I learned from Ricky Lake at a far too young age, and like that was where I picked this up. But like that was all we knew, and like even when the representation was terrible, it was the only thing we could kind of like find pieces of ourselves in. And then and then there's also like a character that I'm thinking about a lot is in Lovely Complex, the shoujo. I love Lovely Complex, and I think it's like episode 3. There's this blonde girl who's introduced, and she is obsessed with Otani. And it turns out she cross-dresses, or maybe she even is trans. Like they never really explain what her identity truly is, but she is allowed, or they are still allowed, to go to school, as wearing the girl uniform, using the girl, the female pronouns, having a girl persona. So I'm assuming she identifies as a girl. But when I watched that as a teenager, with the lack of information that I had, and being already a full-fledged fujoshi, I liked that character because I saw her as a cross-dressing he who had the potential to get with Otani, which of course is like invalidating her identity, but we didn't talk about things like that. And we were so colored by the environment that we were living in, and the media that we were consuming.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that we always come back to Yoshiki Kitazawa, because I think there was likely a time that we both quite liked this character. There was probably a time where both of us quite liked Yoshiki.
I think I liked her up until the point where she locked Yuki into that room, because I do feel like that was very unnecessary of her.
Valid. You literally also are Tsuichi Shindo, so of course that bothered you. I was fine with it.
Of course you were.
My OTP is Eri and Kitazawa, so I was fine with
The
it.
more I read that series, like every time I go back, there are some new things about that arc that disturbs me. I'm like,
I'm over here just like in my I know I'm wrong camp.
I'm gonna cut that out. I'm gonna have that forever. You just admitted you were wrong.
I know I'm wrong, but
Good.
that's what fandom is.
Yeah,
I'm
of
still
course.
allowed a platform, and I can still be valid.
Yeah,
I know I'm wrong.
but I also think we keep coming back to her also because she was such a, especially within BL, like she is a prominent character who actually states her transness, because a lot of the time you were just kind of like guessing and kind of like applying that label to the character, because a lot of the time they were just like undefined cross-dressers, and you just had to like, okay, are they or aren't they, you know?
Right.
Like,
so yeah, I think it's interesting that that trope has, it's died in the mainstream. Like we don't see it in manga very much, or like the poorly written transgender character. We do still get a lot of like trans headcanons and fandom, which please do not get me started. I have a lot of complicated feelings about those.
yeah, we have touched upon those for both of us a little bit over the course of the podcast.
And like my feelings, to preface, my feelings aren't negative. Like obviously I genuinely, if that's what you find in a character, I'm okay with that, but my brain is old. I need to understand why.
Yeah, and like, you know, I feel like this is me being a sinner in church, okay? But like because you know, there are some things that are canon. I don't care if they are not confirmed in canon. They are canon. And if you can't see that, I don't know what's wrong with you. But like, so with saying that with all of my chest, you know, like you have to accept this as canon, even though Kishi didn't actually let it happen. It is canon. I will still be like, you cannot like canonize a character's, say, transness and then demand that everyone else adheres to it, because everyone, you know, and like, because absolutely nothing wrong with headcanoning a character as trans or anything else that you you know, that you feel applies to that character that you want to develop, you know, and explore with that character. But you can't demand everyone else in the rest of the world to see them exactly like that at all times. Like, that's the beauty of fandom. We're all allowed to like explore characters freely.
And like, I'm so fascinated by trans headcanons. I think like one of the things, again, one of the reasons why it keeps coming up is I would just love to talk about it more, but they tend to be headcanons that are held very close to the chest and written by newer fans who aren't used to having to have their arguments hold up to any kind of scrutiny. And for me, at least, it's not scrutiny. I'm very, very fascinated by the fact that there's like multiple characters who consistently everyone headcanons as trans. Wow. I'm sure there's a lot about gender performance in there. I'm sure there's a lot about expectations and everything like that. There's so much in there that I'm sure that there is, and I would love to talk about it. But typically, because they're very much projections of a person's trans journey, they do not want to talk about it, and I respect that. But also, I have questions. Why does everyone think that Hawks is trans?
Yeah, but like, you know, and of course you come from a time where, you know, there were shipping manifestos. There were, you know, writing pages and pages and pages of reasoning as to, you know, like fucking master level thesis on why you read this character in this way. So obviously you're curious. You want to know. You want to, like, it's not scrutiny. It's not you saying you kids are wrong. It's just, you know, like, why? Yeah, and like,
why does everyone think these? There's like two characters that come to mind that everyone headcanons trans, and it's like, why?
Yeah, and it's like, and I think that a lot of the time, you know, I will be faced with, you know, a headcanon of a character that I don't necessarily see, or like a pairing that I don't necessarily see. But then, you know, when you are exposed to people's reasoning as to why they see it like that, I'll be like, oh yeah, no, I can definitely see
Exactly.
where you're coming from, and maybe I'll even, enjoy it.
Right.
But it's just that I don't necessarily see it myself, and maybe it's not the fic I would prefer to read.
Correct.
For me personally, that doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yes.
And but yeah, I'm with you. Like, I just think it's very interesting to hear people's reasoning and see, and especially when it's such a when it's such a like a common knowledge kind of thing. Because if you look at certain fandoms like from the outside, and like you'll know nothing about these characters, and you'll be like, oh, I guess they are trans, or I guess they are gay, or I guess they are autistic in canon, and then you're like, wait.
Vash the Stampede with a dick in years. I have not seen a cis Vash the Stampede in like 15 years.
I mean, I have, but when you say it,
writes him trans.
No, but it's like, but you're right. I have seen such a huge amount of fan works of Vash and also Hawks with top surgery scars.
Yes!
And like, but they look so hot. Like, I'll take it. Like, they look amazing. But I'm just like, it's just, okay, so everyone just collectively decided.
We've all decided.
But I'm on the outside looking in, and I'm like, what is happening? Let me in.
So, okay. If you want to talk to us about trans headcanons, let us know in comments.
Please tell us.
Like, clearly we have more thoughts on this.
I'm so fascinated. Like, don't get me wrong. Like,
I feel like it comes off as ambivalent, but it's usually just like respect. But it's like, I want to know why these characters, and like,
give me the lore. Give
me the lore, and like. Especially for Vash, it bothers me because the whole point is that him and Knives are identical. So it's like, is Knives also? What the fuck? What's going on? Like, I have so many questions. I want answers. Anyways, let's talk about the "but I'm a boy" trope.
I just want to cry. This is the trope.
Yes.
That. I mean, obviously nothing could kill my love of BL, but this is the trope
it gets close.
That threw me into this spiral of despair and fatigue that lasted for so long. And you know who I'm going to blame for this? Or who? Well, who? I'm going to blame Misaki from Junjo Romantica, because when Junjo came out, I was ready to fling myself off a fucking cliff, and I have said this before. I have two main problems with but my two main problems with the main story of Junjo Romantica, and the one is, and I have said this so many times.
Yes.
Oh, really? A strange, moody romance novelist, you say? With a younger... Where have I heard that before?
Okay.
And then I got really spicy about it. And the second is, at some point, because, again, Tokyo Pop was publishing Junjo. And then they died for a while. And we were left hanging on volume 12. So I have not read Junjo beyond volume 12. But I will say this. At that point, they have been together for 3 years.
Yes.
3 years. They live together. They're in a committed relationship. And Misaki is still running around screaming, but I'm a man.
Yes.
And at that point, I was ready to kill myself.
And I think again, much like the poorly written transgender characters of the early 90s and 2000s, the mandatory cross-dressing episode, there's something there. Because, like, I know we've all had, like, our bi-pan panic moments. Where, like, the first... I mean, I did.
I don't think I did, actually.
Did I not tell you about, like, my bi-panic moments?
You probably did.
Ava Mendez as Sans Serif in The Spirit. There's a scene where she's sitting on an anachronistic copy machine, and she's talking to this guy that she's trying to kill, and she says, "You looked like you. It sounds like you wanted to make an ass of me." And she makes a photocopy of her perfect ass, and she puts the copy of her ass on the desk. A perfect ass, and I was just like, I like women.
but where's the panic, though?
I mean, the internal panic of screaming, where I'm like a Tex Avery, awooga,
Yeah, because I never had a panic moment. Like, I've told this story before. Like, I was with my then boyfriend and our friend, and we went into the video store, and this girl is behind the counter, and I was like, oh. And then I was like, guys, I think maybe I like girls. And they were like, okay, cool. And then it was like, that was it. And then I was just like telling everyone. And I was very chill about it. I think the closest I've gotten to like the panic is kind of, is what we talked about earlier, the retrospective view of my life when I start realizing that she could not have been the first girl I crushed on. Right? Like, when you look back, there are so many.
That certainly wasn't the first time I looked at a woman with lust in my heart.
Right? But I didn't realize it. So I guess the only bi pan panic I've had is the part where I'm like, how the fuck did I not notice? Like, that's the one. Yeah.
But I like the bones of this because I feel like, at least, like, again, speaking to me and my experience in the West, I've definitely had moments of like, oh, I really like this person, but they're of the same gender? What? Like, that's like, it's a puzzle with two wrong pieces.
Oh,
like, they just pick, like, oh my god. So, like, when I was in high school and I was younger, it was like divide by zero. Like, what do you mean? You can't, it's impossible. You can't like this person.
But that probably also has to do with like background, right? Like, you're, recovering Catholic. Part of your canonical.
Exactly. So there's so much of me that like understands that trope. Where I hate it is when like there is a dick in someone's ass and you're questioning, oh, but I'm a boy. You are getting plowed into the mattress, sir. At some point, both of you stopped caring.
Like, this is not the time nor the place.
You are like, in the middle of a 50-foot yaoi bed.
Oh my god. Literally in the middle, by the way.
Middle of this giant
bed,
room-sized bed. Getting plowed into the mattress. Fucking face down, ass up. Now is not the time for you to be questioning whether your partner, who has done nothing but groan your name into your own ear, is into it or not.
I think, like, we've all had that moment when we've done something with someone, and then, like, the next day or something, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? And it's like, and it doesn't have to be a gay panic. Sometimes it's just, I cannot believe I crossed that line. Or, like, what am I doing? And I feel like with every partner I've had, even though, it's all been fine, it's been fine. It's just that I am so, like, I like to plan things. I'm not a spontaneous person. I am afraid of change. Yes. And so every time I have taken a big step in a relationship with someone, I will immediately the next day start second guessing, like, what the hell was that? Now everything is going to change. Like, I will do that. It's not a gay panic. It's just me panicking.
It's just panic.
It's just panic. I don't care what it is. It's just like, I'll be like, and this will be like, I mean, yes, big changes, like, you have sex with someone for the first time and maybe you weren't intending to have sex with that person, but sometimes it's something like, I bought a new item for my house and now I'm panicking about it. So,
okay, Carola, we don't have time for therapy. It's already been an hour.
I'm sorry. I'm just realizing what a disaster I am.
I've always known.
I know. I saw a pin the other day that I really want. Maybe I did order it, actually. It says, I put the pan in panic. And I have never felt
Just
so
put
validated.
Tamaki in there, and that's you in a nutshell.
Oh no! I'm gonna
Just
start
make it.
growing mushrooms in this corner over here.
Just make it Tamaki themed, and that's literally just you.
Yeah.
But I think the issue with the "but I'm a boy" trope is, again, like, it's usually placed in like the least opportune times, because, again, like, I've absolutely, when I was younger and recovering as a Catholic, had moments where it's like, but you're a girl. Like, again, like, it's like two opposite puzzle pieces that can't connect. Like, just fundamentally.
But like,
math.
if you just turned one of the
just
pieces,
turn one. Yeah, but my brain, like,
maybe, okay, new theory, are gay people just dumb? Like, are we just stupid?
We're just all dyslexic and dysgraphic.
Oh my god.
We can't manipulate things. We have spatial awareness problems.
Yeah,
we can't manipulate things in 3D.
Absolutely terrible.
There's a part of me that likes that is okay with that thinks that that's actually quite cute and endearing. And like, it's a great moment. Again, I've been writing a lot of fic recently to really validate and encourage your partner that it's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Clearly we've made it this far and your dick hasn't been a problem.
But I think my main problem with it, like, it's like at a base level, like, let's rewind 10 years and it's like me, a younger version of me.
Yes.
Who is still old, by the way, in modern fandoms.
I was about to say, do you want to go back just 10 years? Because I feel like that's still a little old.
Yeah, right? Because I was still in my 20s, right?
We might have to go back further.
Yeah, but like, looking at a younger version of me, Sansa wants to go inside. I'm going to finish this sentence and then I'm going to go help him. But,
okay.
But, at that level, it was mostly like, but this is a BL. The whole point is that you're both men. I don't want to deal with this. I just want you to kiss. I want you to mount him. Like, I don't fucking care. Like, that's the point, And then, of course, adding on to that was the fact that a lot of this came, a lot of this frustration came whenever I was watching BL anime.
Yes.
Or, live action, because those were the only ones getting adapted. So the ones where they weren't having this panic and saying this line ad nauseum, they weren't getting adaptations. So I was just so tired, because every time there was a new series or like an OVA, they would do that. And then they would censor the sex on top of everything. So I was just mad. Like, I was just angry. And then looking at it now with, the maturity that I have now and like the knowledge that I have now, I can add to that, BL is supposed to be largely, in a lot of contexts, a fantasy. So then I'm like,
getting there.
Yeah. So then I would be like, why do we have to go and bring this non-issue into the fantasy? And
right. Like, if I wanted all of my non-starter issues with same-sex relationships, I would just look at my own dating history.
Right.
I wouldn't be reading BL to mythologize my own issues of, but we're the same.
How does this? Oh my god!
How does work?
I'm gonna go get him.
Go get the cat.
Okay.
Oh no!
Yes, I'll be right back.
Welcome to everyone's favorite part of the show, where Carola has to go let the cat in. Thank you so much for listening. Greatly appreciate you being here with us for this smooth hour and 8 minutes so far. We still have a lot to cover, so we're going to be here for a while. There she is. And she brought the cat!
Here he is, the birthday boy.
It's his birthday today?
Yes, he is 18 years old today, so he's a legal adult.
Hello, birthday boy. He looks so mad at you.
Of course. I was 2 minutes late. His Majesty.
He looks so mad at being alive. What is wrong with him?
I mean, and I went out of my way. He got a fish cake today.
Aww.
And I bought him some nice cat grass, because the other day he was once again choking on the nasty grass from the outdoors, and I pulled a 12 centimeter strand of grass from his nostril. That's like this big.
Why are you two the same?
I've never choked on grass. I just want to point that out.
I'm just saying.
But yeah, it's actually really funny because we have a lot of the same struggles.
That's what I was saying. Why are you two the same? So that's the "but I'm a boy" trope. It was very pervasive, like in the 90s and early 2000s. And again, I think it's when it's at moments that are like the most inopportune. Because I think, like, especially on high school series early on, I think it's kind of cute and endearing when you're like, well, yeah, when you are immature and you don't know and you are struggling with your compet programming.
Yeah. And like I think compet, you know, is one of my favorite tropes in many cases because I think it's so funny. With, you know, but it has, like, if it's written in a humorous way, you know, with like a really dense protagonist. And like I absolutely get it if you have more, you know, like you said, like either like high school students who are like just kind of coming into understanding who they are, or if you have like characters who have lived, you know, like 30 years of their lives only being attracted to one gender, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, what? But
like there is a way to make that interesting. Just so many early series didn't do that.
Yeah.
And they did it at the most, just the amount of times these conversations were happening like in the middle of sex.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that I remember just now, we all know I love sensitive pornograph. Like, I love it. Don't at me. It was amazing, and we will never have anything that good ever again.
Adding you frequently later.
But there's this one scene in you know the first half with Seiji and Sono, where Seiji panics and he runs outside and they're on the swings in the park, and Sono is saying to Seiji that, you know, he felt like, you know, like, you were different because everybody else approached me thinking I was a woman, and I'm just looking at Sono, who very much looks like a man, and I'm like, what? And I know that people thought that he was a woman because of his manga works, like, because they thought, like, his, like, as an author he was a woman, but the way that scene is portrayed makes it seem like people literally looked at him and thought he was a woman, and I was like, because he's a gay man, like, I don't understand, he's a man. I was very tired.
Speaking of "but I'm a man," bisexual erasure.
There were bisexuals? You know, no, actually, I am going to lift my hand and say that I am guilty of this. Because I feel so ashamed. To this day, I have internalized something in my little Fujo brain that I can't seem to unlearn. Because I love bisexual characters.
I'm a bisexual character.
Yeah, and like I have bisexual characters in my novels. Like I have bisexual characters that I love, that I have written myself. But there's just the thing that I am looking for isn't actually bisexual erasure. It is the slight misogyny that comes with a lot of early BL, where they would make a love triangle with two guys and one girl, and somehow the girl would get more attention than the male couple who were supposed to be the main characters.
Or the girl was just hot fucking trash.
Yeah, and so in the end, I have gotten a habit, like, I just very early on in my BL world, you know, when I started reading and consuming this stuff, I just started ignoring the bisexual part of characters because I felt threatened by it, which is so stupid because there's nothing threatening about a bisexual, but the problem was that except for you, but that's different because you're like an angry bisexual with a shiv, just like that's not what I mean. You can absolutely be a threatening bisexual in a violent way, but
there's no bisexuals aren't threatening except for Amanda. She'll fuck you up.
Somewhat, like, I'm just imagining you as like a small round bird with a shiv. Like that's the image I have of you. But like, no, but like, you know, because there's that idea that bisexuals are sluts, bisexuals are greedy, and, you know, bisexuals have to pick a side. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, I didn't want to call you out in front of our audience and our sponsors and
our sponsor today. Thank you.
No, but like I just felt like so often the focus would be shifted over on the male and female relationships. Mm-hmm. So I would just deny the bisexuality mm-hmm. because then they could be gay. Because if there was a woman in the mix, somehow mm-hmm. It would steal the show. And I'm not proud of it, but I internalized that for a very long time when I was watching series.
A lot of it also is, so like, of course, the big example for me was always Aerie having his like crisis of faith where he's like in the Egyptian Book of the Dead weighing how many men he slept with versus how many women, and there has to be this like perfect balance, otherwise you tip too far in one direction and suddenly the whole world is thrown off and you're no longer bi.
Yeah, but like, I mean, he's such a perfect example because now I'm over here like, depressed bisexual king Yuki, but when I was in the trenches in my teens, like I remember the way I just kind of like the fear and rage that bubbled up in me when his sister first appears and Shuichi doesn't know it's the sister. Yes. And he's like, and Yuki's like leaning into it. And I was like, who the fuck is this bitch ruining my yaoi? And I was like, from that moment, I was so in denial of Yuki's bisexuality. And I think one of the reasons that I have come to terms with it, apart from, being an adult and being, a mature human being, is knowing that he is snug and safe in his married life with Shuichi. He chose Shuichi. He didn't choose a woman. He chose a man. And I am sitting fine with that. I'm sorry.
If you're a listener only, you can't hear the noise my eyes just made. You can't hear
I think maybe they could. It was very loud, Amanda.
You can't hear the noise my eyes just made in Carola's connection.
But it's just terrible. But I just want to point out that I have only ever erased bisexuals in fiction. I respect real life bisexuals.
Well, and I think that's the thing, is that it is this cognitive dissonance. Because like I know I've done the same thing, not necessarily to that extent, but like I'm very much a classic old smut peddler. I am here because I want two fictional men to do things.
Yeah.
And women take up space in that regard. They are literally impeding the thing I want.
Right.
So I when I wrote my Vash and Knives fic, I used an old OC that I had. I repurposed her and like threw her in as like a prop marriage that Knives is getting into. So he can hide the fact that him and Vash are super fucking. So I got to be a little bit self-indulgent while also being terrible, as writers do. And I realized like much later after that fic, like the implication of like, I just took a character that was an OC stand-in for me years ago and turned her into the villain of this story because she's literally just a cover for Knives to continue to fuck his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think about the implications of that when I was writing it because I was just, I guess, riding the current of needing Vash's pussy destroyed, which many of us were at that time. But the bisexual erasure coming from, one, characters that are saying that they're bi a lot. We did actually get a lot of characters in the 90s and 2000s who said they were bi, only to have them then, like, at the end of the episode, raise a different flag and say they're gay after sleeping with one man. One special man. And not to say that doesn't happen, not to say that labels don't change. I know, like, definitely for me, bisexual has always fit because my definition of bisexuality has never been as limiting as other people's definition of bisexuality. So while on paper, I'm definitely more like pan-omni, to me, bisexuality has never been as hardcore limiting as other people make it sound. So to me, it fits and it's fine. And I'm very secure in that. And I like the way my two pride flags look together because they coordinate.
Which is important.
Yeah, it's so important. The gender fluid pride flag and the bi pride flag look so good together.
Yeah, I agree.
But that erasure of letting bi men have that experience of being attracted to both and being, open to experimentation. And again, like where you could take that moment and use it as an affirmation to a partner. That's a perfect place for, but I'm a boy discourse. And it's like, cool, I swing both ways. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right?
Like, I'm down to fuck regardless. Like, it's okay.
It's just like the problem is kind of like how limited or like limiting a lot of these like kind of like spaces in fiction were, because it was like there was no room for that kind of like that discussion and like the exploration. It was just the panic or just the denial. And like and
which
like,
is really, which I mean, again, like speaks to the bisexual experience, because again, we talked about at the start of the show that like not all representation has to be good representation. I've definitely had moments like Ari where I'm like counting out my partners, like, am I a true bi? I've slept with more men than women, but then I slept with a lot of women, and then it's like, but then what am I?
Because society is fucked.
Right.
Like can we just cut bisexuals
a break,
some slack? Like,
please.
People who are not exclusively attracted to one gender are still valid, regardless of how many people we've been with or slept with or whatever of either gender. Like, that's not how that works.
Correct.
And and like, no, I just want to mention, because when you said the whole like the because we are here for the boys kissing, and like that's the thing. Like, if I go into a piece of media, be that a manga or like a fanfic or any kind of media where there are characters who have like different fluid sexualities or whatever, like I'll be pretty open to it. But it's like in BL specifically, like I'm here for the boys kissing, and so that is like I'm going to mention him, my bisexual mafia queen, Porsche Kitasawa Terapanyakul. Like, he is, because in Kin Porsche is out there fucking women. Then he meets Mafia King Kin. Suddenly he's a bisexual, and he man takes it in stride. But if I'm when I'm up at 3 a.m. reading those fanfics in bed, I don't want him fucking women. That's not why I'm here. Like, I love him as a bisexual,
right?
But that's not what I'm into. But like when I was reading, shout out to our sponsor, when I was reading on Filthy Figments today, like there were comics that are tagged as male, but suddenly there's like a like there's a female character, there's a threesome or something. And like that's really fucking hot if
that's what you're expecting.
Yeah, if that's what I'm expecting, or if it's in like if it's framed in a way where this isn't specifically a BL. And so, like, I can absolutely enjoy that.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I think that's a really, really important point when you think about that kind of stuff, is that it isn't typically that it is a very thinly veiled misogyny that most of us have had to grapple with for years. But it's usually, at least for me, I know when I first started writing BL and stuff like that, women were an obstacle for the gay.
Yeah.
And it did help fuel a lot of my own internalized misogyny.
Yeah.
And it made it easier for me to hate these female characters.
Yeah.
But I think about like my early shonen shipping, where like, oh my God, like, I hate Winry. And it's like, you don't hate Winry because she's a woman. You hate her because she is stopping your fictional world where Ed and Roy kiss 24/7. Like, you don't hate her for existing. You hate her for breaking up this illusion.
Yeah, and often, there are two layers here, because you have the layer that is, she is in the way of the two boys kissing. And then you also have people just suck at writing good female characters. Yes. So you end up hating a character because of the way she was written, even though that's not her fault. She's just there. She can't control this. So you end up being a terrible misogynist, but it's really just bad writing and bad timing on the plot. And like a lot of the early, like I said, like a lot of the early BL when we were getting, because dear listener, if you are of a younger generation, which I doubt if you're listening to us, but
most
you
of our
know,
listeners are
like
not.
to the Thai BL generation, I need you to know that the only live action BLs we were getting for a while they weren't even series. They were
No.
films
Yep.
that were 70 minutes long, and they had 1 out of 2 endings. It would either be someone died, or they had the Japanese kiss where their lips aren't even touching. Like,
correct.
That was what we were getting. And in a lot of these, like I might mention this film called Skitomo, which I was looking for so long because Hiroki Aiba is beautiful, and it's this weird love triangle because like this guy is interested in this dude, but he has a younger sister and she's in love with the first guy, and then somehow this BL movie ends up becoming centered on her issues because she's in love with a guy who's in love with her brother, and it's all about her. And I was like, what?
And it just, we probably could do a whole episode on like BL and misogyny.
I think we should probably. This is turning into one, but
we probably should just do an episode on BL and misogyny, just because I feel like there's that two-pronged attack of one, women being obstacles to end goal, which is butt fucking, and two, these characters usually being written horribly to begin with, so they're not only in the way, they're terrible.
Yeah. And it's like, and that is so funny because this is regardless. Because if you look at, typically, we can assume that most BL, and I'm using air quotes, is written by women authors.
Yes.
We don't know this for sure. People use pen names. There are men who write BL. There are, different genders who write BL. But a lot of the mangaka, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, were women. And they still wrote terrible women. Okay?
Well, because I'm going to save this for the episode because we're going to just do sometime next year we're doing BL and misogyny.
We've been here for so long. What the hell is happening?
We're having a good conversation for our sponsor, Carola.
Yeah, we are.
We're showing all the ankle today.
I'm also showing some thigh, but yeah.
BL is fantasy versus reality. I think that's where, if you notice the trend in us talking about this stuff, where this really, really falls apart is that if we were looking at BL as this idyllic fantasy world, which especially in the 90s and the 2000s, we were, why do we still have all the same hang-ups that we do in real life if we're living in this beautiful Motohage world where...
Yes, can I just...
You may.
Sometimes I do this, I hold my little presentations on the history of BL.
Yes.
And I talk about the idealized BL fantasy.
Yes.
And I talk about Motohagio and Takemiya Keiko. And then my brain is like, yes. The idealized fantasy world where everyone is either killed or commits suicide.
I was about to say, that's not an idealized fantasy world.
What idealized fantasy world?
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean, and I know what I mean when I say it, but sometimes I start thinking about these series, and I'm like, idealized where?
But, why do we still have all these hang-ups and stuff if this is just a fantasy land where everyone's gay? So, I've been writing a lot of fanfic. I've been writing a lot of fanfic about Batman recently. There has never been a conversation in any of my fics about any of these men questioning their sexuality. Because, one, it would take up space. And that space I could use for butt sex.
Honestly. Good job writing 2K smut yesterday.
Thank you!
I'm very proud of you.
And also, why, if I'm already extrapolating so much to make this happen, why would I give them so many of these real world hangouts? Like, oh my God, I will never forget this. I know I've brought this up a million times, but that one girl who left a comment on my Dick Grayson and Jason Todd fic, who was like, by the way, Jason would never touch drugs. Also, by the way, if we're talking about canon, Jason wouldn't suck Dick's cock. 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 Jason wouldn't suck Dick's cock but we're not in canon land. So let him do a line off of Speedy's dick.
I'm just processing the line Dick's cock because that was
I've had to maneuver that his name is Dick so much. Someone rename Dick Grayson. I swear to God, we were just talking about this on Discord, where I was doing so good just using cock and dick, and I wasn't using flowery language. We were not purple prosing it. It wasn't engorged meter. No, fuck that shit. We were using plain terms, and then I primarily write a character whose first name is Dick, and no one calls him Richard.
Yeah, that is a problem. See, this is why. I mean, no, I don't consume a lot of like that kind of media because I'm just not attracted. Can I say I'm not attracted to Western characters. Okay, leave me alone.
So fucking shady. Can I help you?
Yeah, no, but with those kinds of characters, like, I don't have to deal with those kinds of names. Like, I will not encounter a person named Dick. But then, of course, I live in TBL land, which, have I mentioned this? Because when we were talking about pet peeves and, like, things in fanfic, you know how people, like, it's a trend to write in all lowercase? I now forget what that's called. There's a name for it. People do that. I am a fan of proper grammar. I like capital letters at the start of sentences and for proper nouns. But do you know how confusing it is to read fanfic written in all small letters, lowercase letters, when characters have names that are just everyday objects because they're Thai? That is very confusing, okay?
Okay. Carola, it's been an hour and 31 minutes.
I'm sorry.
We don't have time for this.
No, I know. I just had to get it out of my system.
But, that BL is fantasy versus reality, where for a lot of people, especially in the 90s and the 2000s when many of us started our journeys, it was this idealized space where not every gay had to die, unless you're reading Otahakio, then every gay did have to die. But I think there's also space for, again, a lot of these tropes to be there as they are more realistic. I'm always really, really hot and cold about how much I want BL to touch on real life issues. Like, I've grappled that a lot with, like, Yuri on Ice, where, like, everyone just stops at how happy that ending is. But it's like, so where are they going to go? Because Victor's a Russian national, and Chuck's notes, that doesn't fly there. So what's right? So what now? What now? Like, that's cool and all. They exchange rings. That's nice. What next?
I mean, if I may, I just want to point out the number of Russian figure skaters who take up residence in other European countries because there are too many Russian athletes, and therefore they can't make it to the national team, so they start competing for other nations. So in that sense, I guess Victor moves to some country in Europe where it's legal, and he takes Yuri with him.
And that's fine. Like, literally, if that was, like, a sentence, like, right at the end or in the epilogue, I would probably have less negative things to say. Not none. Just less.
I mean, I'm, again, still salty because Yuri Plisetsky, I love you, you angry little Russian thing. But how dare you win that gold medal and rob me of my wedding? I was promised a wedding! Because
he was the better athlete, Carola.
Do you know how figure skating works,
Yes.
Amanda? There is no such thing.
You are not gay. No, you are not gay mansplaining figure skating to me. As if I also wasn't into figure skating. I watched the dumb ice skating show because I liked ice skating.
But the
fantasy versus reality.
Okay, yes. Anyway, hello, dear listener. The figure skating season has officially started, and I am not okay. Also, I didn't get to watch Lombardia because one, I was busy, and two, it was paywalled, and I'm mad.
I thought you were going to blame me, and I was fully ready to fight. Thought you were going to blame the show.
I mean, the thing is, you can try to, like, and you can, and sometimes you do, try to gatekeep my life from figure skating, but you can't win, Amanda.
When have I ever? I am not an abusive seme to you. Yes, when have I ever done that?
You want me to pull up some chat logs where you're just like shading me for prioritizing my skating competitions over everything else in my life?
Sleep and eating. No, I have never said you can't have the show or figure skating. I've said it's 3:00 in the fucking morning and you need to go to bed. No. I will not accept your uke games where you make me sound like I'm this horrible partner that beats you because I want you to go to bed.
In my defense, how do you think I stay awake at 3 a.m. when I'm watching Skate America? Like, obviously I'm eating. Like, I just want you to know that I may not be sleeping, but I am eating while watching the competition so I can stay awake.
I will not accept your uke mind games where you make me sound like I am beating you and have you chained to a bed so you have to record the show.
Is this Okane Ganai?
Yes.
It's like I genuinely don't have any money.
Well,
Okane chodai.
That's why I have the job.
Please give me.
That's why I have the job, and I distribute the Patreon money. But using this as a fantasy escape place, and again, especially for a lot of us who knew they were queer or would later find out.
And boy, did we find out.
You know, that this was really a fantasy playground. So when it came with all this baggage of, but I'm a boy, it's like, just put his dick in your mouth.
Shut up. Yeah.
Shut up.
But like, harder.
Suck harder.
That's the point. You are. And it's like, it's so... But it's like, I've said this so many times, like, these two can coexist.
They can.
They can and they do.
Yes.
But, like, everything doesn't have to be realistic and representative. And everything doesn't have to be a fantasy. It all depends on what you're looking at. And, like,
correct.
Part of the reason why, I mean, again, I don't know if I would call Kazutaki no Uta or Heart of Toma idealized, you know, because, like, they are sad as fuck. It looks
very pretty.
It's very pretty. Yes. But one of the reasons that we call it idealized and then we say that it's a fantasy, right, is like they set it to Europe for a reason because it was more plausible.
Right.
The gayness, the queerness was more plausible and more plausibly accepted. Plus you have the boarding school environment, which we all know is famously gay. But then at the same time, the same source of inspiration for a lot of these early works that kind of formed and shaped BL as a fantasy were also heavily influenced, you know, by the same works that were often tragedies, right? Yeah. So that's why. So the idealized part is the part where everyone is gay and everything is, but that doesn't mean they weren't suffering. But like it's kind of like you can but you can have both, but you can also have only one, and like that's okay too.
Well, and I think it's always interesting to talk about because, like, even when I wrote, like, my really, really big gravitation fic, I said a lot of it in the U.S. because guess who, at least at the time, had better opinions of homosexuality than Japan did. And it felt easier for me to have a very, very flamboyant, very out character versus having them exist in Japan, especially where I'm writing in the 2000s. Where a character like that would probably get hate crimed. I mean, he probably get hate crimed in the U.S., but
but you know, but like, and again, like I always joke in BL contexts that New York is the boyfriend stealing city because it's always fucking New York.
That's actually where my character steals Harry from Suichi.
Exactly.
That is 100% where my character steals Harry from Suichi.
And in canon, Yuki goes to New York and leaves Shuichi behind, right?
Yes.
And I wrote a novel where, there was a breakup. And why was there a breakup? Because the one character was, he was going away to study. Where?
Yep.
New York. Because I grew up watching and reading BLs where it was always New York. So it was always New York. Like, you're not going to go to Cleveland, Ohio.
Just trying to imagine two fictional gay men in Cleveland, Ohio.
I don't know anything about Cleveland, Ohio.
They are famous for serving chili on spaghetti, and you can get it up to a 5-way, which includes onions, cheese, and fried jalapeno poppers.
Like, I only know, I think it's the Cheap Trick song, Cleveland Rocks. Like, I've heard the song.
Two sides of the spectrum. I know about their weird food.
But yeah,
like, it's interesting to think about, because, like, so I have that again, like, with the fics that I've been writing, like, yeah, I do mention things like prep. I mention things about, like, oh, well, someone's not always out. Like, I do talk about realistic things, but still in this fantasy setting, but for the most part, the characters involved aren't having, like, an existential crisis every time they go to Pound Town.
Imagine how exhausting that must be, because you're existing...
I'm tired.
You are existing within a universe that is largely comprised of huge portions of smut.
Yes.
And then you're having an existential crisis every single time.
I'd be exhausted.
Like,
I'd stop having sex. Like, I would just...
Yeah, right? Like, there's 3 sex scenes per chapter. And you're just, like, having a fucking existential crisis.
Each time, you're just, like, brought to your hands and knees, like, what am I, God?
Is this why everyone looked so much older than their age in the 90s? Because
they've also been aged by constantly having to question their sexuality.
It's like, you're just laying there trying to have a good time, but you're like,
what am I?
What am I? What is he?
What am I doing? But as to the note that Carola added, because literally I was happy to stop there and be like, everything sucked, bye.
Yeah, and then I thought that was a little bleak, so I wanted to I also
think I got busy and just kind of forgot.
Yeah.
But I was happy to end it. Everything sucks. See you next month. Carola, do you want to talk about how there are some good examples in recent times?
I do, actually. Of course, I've written very sparse notes compared to everything that exists in my brain. But also, we've been here forever, so I'll try to keep it concise. But
what you gotta do?
Okay, so there are good examples. There are good examples in, like, the older works, and, like, I feel like we've touched on some of them because everything wasn't terrible. But we like to talk about terrible things.
Literally just talking about 2000s fandom. Not everything was terrible.
No, but, like, a lot of things have gotten better, and especially, in the recent times, we're seeing examples of this. So I've mentioned this a lot, but, like, there is an overlap between BL and mainstream manga, or, like, manga that is geared towards a non-BL audience, or that isn't labeled as BL. So again, Yuri on Ice is not a BL, but it is a queer series. Number 6 is not a BL. It's a dystopian, gay something that broke my heart.
I am so sorry for everyone who is listener only and can't hear just the magnitude of over it I am when you talk about mainstream stuff.
But I think
you're right.
Yeah, but it's important. Like I mentioned earlier, we're getting all of these shows, like
we are.
Senpai wa Otoko no Ko, right? And like, there are so many manga coming out that are dealing with, different kinds of gender and sexualities. You have crossplay love, you have I can't remember. Everyone and their mom has been talking about it in August. There's this new manga coming out that is about an agender character, like in Arrow Ace.
I believe
character.
so, yes.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. And there are so many essay manga as well coming out that are detailing the personal experiences of people that have various queer identities. like there are so many there are just so many different types of stories, and it's so much more common to see characters, who have different forms of gender expressions or sexualities in main, in like manga that is aimed at a different demographic than just Fujin. So like, for instance, if we look at, okay, so Oran, back in the day, Oran is, a reverse harem fan servicey thing, and Haruhi's dad is famously an okama. He works as an okama. He works in a cross-dressing bar. But then you juxtapose that with, say, something like, say, Skip and Loafer, which is a shoujo romance that was airing, I think, last year, where the main character lives with her aunt, who is a trans woman, and it's just such a matter-of-fact thing that is just like you don't get to know about it right away, and then it's kind of just like there, and it's not problematized, it's not really delved into, but it's like, it's just, she's just there, and she's she's a great parental figure, and it's like there are so many like people, like characters who just get to exist in their bodies and in their sexualities as just regular parts of the cast, and sometimes even as main characters in stories that aren't, labeled as, say, BL, for instance, like on
the and
on that spectrum.
That's been really, really interesting to see. Like, I mean, as much as I'm very mid on Yaoi on Ice, I have to give credit to how much representation it did provide for literally like everyone. And my ambivalence towards it doesn't negate those feelings.
No. And like, but we've talked so much about it. Like, it's not like Yuri on Ice invented queerness, kind of. But I absolutely understand the people who say that it meant a lot to them.
Yes.
But it's kind of like, like I was saying earlier this year when I was so upset about that one tweet that was like, number 6, the OG BL. And I was like, number 6 came out in 2011, you fetus! And also, it's... But it's... and I love...
Just screaming, you fetus, at someone.
I was so upset. And I say that with all the love I have for number 6, which, by the way, is rumored to be getting a sequel and is also getting a stage play. And I am going to die. I am so happy. I love them so much. My little dystopian terrorists. But yeah, no. And, so there's all of this. There's all of, like these different characters of all different shades of, queer that are just popping up everywhere. In manga, in anime, in games, like in Japan, and then of course there's on a broader scale we have to talk about Thai BL. Thai BL isn't the only part of the BL industry that is that is extremely progressive, but it's progressive in a very interesting way. So like BL has gone from being something that has been kind of very insular to one community where like a certain kind of people are the ones consuming it or creating it, and then now it's becoming much more possibly also because they're putting more money into it in Japan, in Korea, the fact that they are casting idols who formerly weren't being cast in queer series. They're like casting idols who have a huge following in productions that have queer relationships, and therefore drawing a new audience into it and making it more acceptable, making it more mainstream, and also putting more money into it because bigger names, not just some random they pulled off the street kind of like and so you have all of you have that, which makes it more accessible, which makes a lot of people open their eyes more to the queer experience and to the various forms of love and gender expressions that exist. But then they are putting this back into society. And, again, like I'm just trying my best to paraphrase all the things Dr. Thomas has ever said. but
points in the direction of Dr. Thomas's Twitter.
Points to Dr. Thomas's Twitter. But like, if you look at Thai BL in particular, they are so good at using their platforms to further the cause. So you have like BLs that are talking about, like there's been a lot lately, they are talking about PrEP. You have companies like my beloved Beyond Cloud, who made Kin Porsche, who are working with the Thai government in the Thai government and the Thai Tourist Association to create series that are promoting Thailand as a country, but also that are, you know, they are working with the government on the new marriage equality law, pushing the law. You have the actors who are playing in these series going out and speaking out for marriage equality and using their platform as activists and as advocates for. So, you know, it's being used to influence the actual world that we live in, and then that is pulled back into the series, and the series are getting more realistic and more representative, and they are talking about more how you say it, like relevant real world issues, like putting them back in the series. And that doesn't mean that we don't have series that are just completely off the rails, you know, just fantasies and porn and, you know, really, really strange, entertaining timelines and storylines that nobody understands. Like we absolutely have those too, but it's just it's so interesting to see how, you know, the activism and the entertainment industry is working together and bettering the case for both people in the real world as well as for the characters who exist within the series.
Right. And I think that there's something that's really, really powerful about that, and that I really appreciate seeing, because again, that's been a major like critique of mine, especially, I don't know, at least for me, like the illusion definitely breaks when we're talking about like real 3D people. So when you have a world like that where you've idealized like the real world, and you know that that's like, I know Gravitation is set in a very fictionalized Japan.
You think? I mean, there are parts. Yes.
I'm trying. I'm doing my best. But like, if you have like the actual Philippines as your backdrop, I know y'all are fine with this. Fuck off! Like, I know y'all aren't cool with this. You have to bring it up. You can't just, and in this one cozy bubble, everything was fine.
Yeah, but, and you know, and I think that there's this one series I was talking about this with someone. I can't remember if this was at CitrusCon or if it was last weekend at some, I attended a con thing last weekend. Everything is a blur. I don't know. I didn't sleep. But
we know where she is.
We were talking about representation in BL. Yeah, actually that was last weekend. And I brought up there's a live action Japanese BL that is called Love on the Line, Sen Love on the Line. Which is like, it's very short. I think it has like 4 episodes, and it's about 2 guys and their relationship from high school into adulthood. And in one of the episodes, it has 2 coming out scenes, because both parties are coming out to their parents, and like this one guy is super nervous. He comes out to his mom, and she takes it so well, and she's so excited for him that he's found, you know, someone to be with, even though it's a man. Like, she really does not care. And then the other guy really, really struggles because his family absolutely does not accept him, and like it is a very harsh scene. And then later on, his sister comes home, and she has a boyfriend who is from, I think it's somewhere in the Middle East. I can't remember the country. And the parents are equally mad, because like, how dare you bring a foreigner into our home? Like, you have to end this relationship. No. And they are so mad. And like the juxtaposition of, you know, how they react, say, to the male partner and to the foreigner, and then how the brother stands up for his sister, and like both he and his boyfriend are like standing up for this other guy, and like they are bringing the family together, because they're like, we won't stand for this, and if you can't accept him, we are all walking out. And it's like, it's so beautiful. Like, I just really love how, you know, we can also have this, like we can have a silly, cute story like I don't know, I can't remember any silly cute stories right now. But like, I mean, something like My Beautiful Man, which I absolutely, absolutely love.
Carola
But
and I have not read a silly cute story.
no, I was gonna say no, but like I wanted to bring up Kia the Hatsukoi, but it actually also deals a little bit with homophobia, so it's not a good example. But like you can have something that is very cute and very like innocent and very like playful, and then you can also have something like this where it's just like, hey, this is a real life issue. People are homophobic and racist, and that is not okay. And then you can use that platform to you know, showcase that while also being a BL. Like, I think it's, yeah, I think we are doing good. And then, of course, finally, there is the global influence.
We're doing better.
We're doing better. And because we are seeing so much more BL, you know, globally as well, because, you know, we have indie publishers and you know, we have people who create comics and webtoons from all over the world.
Like our beautiful sponsor.
Like our beautiful sponsor, you know. We are seeing so much more diversity and so much more inclusion and all kinds of stories in all formats. And it's just, you know, that elevates the representation. Like everything, again, everything doesn't have to be representative, but you will get more representation the more people are creating and using their experiences in those creations.
And I've been very, very vocal in saying, like, one of the big reasons why, at least for me, it was easier not to put all my eggs in the basket of if I don't find myself in BL, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Was because I was reading so many other things. I could kind of like cobble a representation golem. And then when I found, especially Western webcomics, was like, oh, these are my people. You know, this is it. So now, especially, like, I am not reading BL looking for representation. If I find it awesome,
right?
And it usually makes me sad because it's like, I connected to Yashiro way too much and twittering birds never fly. I should probably go to a therapy about it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time it's not so much I relate to this gay experience as it is I relate to this terrible trauma or this very unhealthy coping mechanism that this character is having, and I don't know if that is okay.
I feel this awful man a little too much. I should probably go see a therapy about it. Not a 10-count therapy, an actual therapy. But the global influence and then just the ability for people to create. I mean, again, you know, not just in the webcomic space, but again, in the fan work space. We've been talking a lot about fan works and Fix It, especially because of our panel at CitrusCon. But like, that's one of the places where I started seeing better representation first, was fans taking this back. It was fans writing these series without the unnecessary angst and drama. It was taking these works and almost like removing the impurities from them and then giving us a better, more self-actualized version. So I am personally, just as a fan of gay shit, happy that things are getting better.
Yeah.
I am especially happy that that drive, though, is being led by indie and fan creators. While I'm not going to dismiss the important stuff going on in Thailand, I'm not going to dismiss any of that. I love that it has always been indie and fan creators that have led that charge, though, and have been leading that charge for Check's Watch ever.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I'm going to clip that.
But yeah, no, but you're...
Play it before bed every night. You're not wrong.
Just to comfort yourself, you know.
Yes.
No, but you're right. And again, like, there's a mutual influence there, right? Because the, you know, the bigger creators, in some cases at least, you know, are willing to listen to the fans and like see what, you know, what is it that people are enjoying, what is it that people are talking about, how can we incorporate this into our stories in a believable way. But then also, you know, like you said, like the fan works have always been such a huge part of it, like that we are going in and fixing and reaffirming and developing the things that you know canon is barely touching upon. But then now with, say, indie publishing and webcomic platforms and everything becoming so accessible to most of us, that you can kind of take it even out of the fandom spaces and make your own original works, and you know, use those experiences and those contexts and create the works that you were longing to see.
Carola, we should have a comic on Filthy Figments. It should just be us talking about our disaster dating lives.
Okay, but who's gonna draw it?
We need to find an artist, firstly, and then it could just be us talking about our disastrous dating lives as two disaster queers.
Oh my god. Yes.
It would be a blast. This is the part of the show where we thank our patrons, and Yay! I was having such a good conversation that I forgot to pull up the list of patrons. I forgot to pull up the fucking patron list because I was enjoying myself.
Good. I'm feeling very good.
I'm feeling great, TB.
I mean, I feel like I'm dying, but like I'm feeling very good about this episode. I'm having a good time. I know that when we stop recording, I'm going to remember a billion things I wish I'd said, but I will keep those for the live.
Well, I'll say that's what live and Patreon are for.
Yeah.
So shout out to our patrons: Starlight, Kenny, Braden, Dobie80, Stephen, Koval, Sue, Lucy H, Amora Blue, Nabila, Rin, Wesley, Jamie, and Lauren, and Jay. Thank you so much for supporting the show.
Thank you so much.
We are so grateful. Your financial contributions help us keep the metaphorical and physical lights on and allow us to send gifts to necessary allies. I don't know why I said like Game of Thrones, necessary allies, to our fucking friends.
And also allows me to bulk order my backlog of manga, which is what I've been doing. Send help.
So actually, what I do with my Patreon money is I bought back into the BL economy and I commissioned a friend.
Ooh, exciting.
Let us know if you want us to move that BL economics episode into like the last part of this year. Because I feel like there's one episode right towards the end of this year that we could probably swap for it. But let us know if you guys are willing to wait for that in 2025 or if you want that now. Because I've been thinking a lot about the BL economy. And speaking of the BL economy, yes, Carola?
No, I was just saying I've been contributing a lot to the BL economy lately.
Same. And speaking of the BL economy, thank you to our sponsor, Filthy Figments.
Thank you.
If you want, honestly, some of the best smutty webcomics out there. I've been a long-time fan of Filthy Figments.
I am returning to them once we wrap up this episode. I have some stuff to read.
I was like, can we wrap this shit up? I gotta go.
Listen, I was enjoying it.
I was in the middle of my stories. Can you wrap this shit up?
Listen, I was like, because I didn't have any time during the week to actually delve into it. So once I started today, I had my little snack bowl, I had my little Red Bull, I was reading, and then Amanda was like, "Oh, here's the link for the studio." I'm like, but I am reading. I was able to finish reading the comic I was reading.
Gracious! How gracious of you to join us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And sorry for sneaking up into your reading time. I was also caught with my pants down reading because I opened up a smut fic in my web browser while I was waiting for Carola to join us in studio, and I was like, she's here! Like
I could see your screen.
Huh?
Like I could see your screen.
Right. Like she could see my screen and knew what I was reading, and as if she would be disappointed in that.
Oh my god, this reminds me. Shout out to the person on Twitter, which I saw. I think it was when I was on the bus the other day, because I've been very little on the internet this week because I've been out being gay in public. But I was on the bus, I think, and there was this tweet from this one person who was like, they'd been trying to download some BL game, And then they'd been like clicking links, and just as their dad walked into the room, the link had taken them to some university website, and the dad, who had actually come into the room to check that they weren't, doing anything other than looking at college applications, was like, "Good, you're doing good. I'm so glad you're taking this seriously." And OP's over there like, I was trying to download a porn game. So shout out to that person.
Shout out to that. Also, my favorite part about like Steam and Discord, because it integrates, is when you're playing like a hentai game. It yells it. Like, it's like it just tells your friends, "This guy's playing a porn game."
We were laughing so hard at that last night when we came home from the parade. I was sobbing when I saw that tweet.
But thank you so much to our patrons, and thank you so much to Filthy Figments. If you would like to join our patrons, you can do so at patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf. Again, that is patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf, where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes looks, you get an exclusive video every month, and depending on how this design goes, a secondary, very necessary sticker based on our conversation last month.
Yes.
Remember that your organic engagement also helps us a lot, so feel free to follow us on Instagram, Twitter. You can check out our Discord, and your engagement helps us a lot, so feel free to like, comment, let us know what you think.
Interact with this episode somehow. Leave us a review if you're listening on a podcast platform.
Yeah, leave us a review. I love those. Carola, do you want to tell the audience what we're covering next month?
Yes, it's Halloween month. So listen, okay, when we hit September 1st, I was a little stressed because I am already very cold. I'm not ready. And you know how I get. You know how I get during this season when everyone is like, "Oh my god, it's sweater weather." And I'm like, I live in Norway. Shut the fuck up. I was just getting warm. But then it's Freddy season. So I've already started moving into all of my Halloween shirts, So I'm very excited. And so, because it is Halloween and spooky month, we are finally doing the much awaited, suddenly, very Norwegian, the much awaited performative angst of early BL fandom episode.
Another topic that came out of an episode.
Yeah.
We've been having a lot of those, and I think that's what I love about this show and being able to host it with Carola. I was going to say someone like Carola, but that sounded really impersonal.
I mean, no, because actually I died a while ago, and this is just some creature. It's
just the summer Hikaru died all over again. Like,
yeah.
I'm not Carola.
This entity is doing a very good job mimicking, I will say that.
I think that's one of the reasons why I love doing the show with Carola, is because we do end up with all these things like, this should probably just be its own episode.
Yeah.
We could talk about it here. We're going to be here for another 2 fucking hours.
And then, like, half of that is just us dissociating into madness, There's
going to be a lot of disassociating into madness talk at the performative angst of early BL fandom. We get to talk about some really, really gross early fan practices.
Terrible ideas about what it meant to be a fan of something.
And more pipes.
Oh no. Why? How many more pipes can there possibly be?
There's a lot of pipes, Carola. I'm so sorry.
I'm so tired. I didn't realize this was the Mario game from hell.
The worst ever iteration of a Mario game.
Worst. It's like, Super Mario Maker?
Yeah.
That made by Yaoi fans. Just like...
Oh, that's awful.
Oh, no.
That is heinous.
Oh, I created a nightmare.
You've created a couple of nightmares this episode.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm just getting into the Halloween spirit, I'm
going to go write my manifesto that Yoshiki Kitazawa is actually just Yuki Kitazawa.
I'm very excited to hear all about it, because I think we're onto something here.
I think we are.
I'm very excited to see now, as the the re-release, the new
Mhm.
licensed version is coming out, how they will handle Yoshiki
It's gonna be
Kitazawa.
an X.
I am so concerned. Like, but it has to be better. It must be better.
It's just gonna be a floating black box.
Just imagine if we were the editors and there would just be like an author's note, just like, we decided to just leave this chapter out altogether for everyone's sanity.
We just cut this whole shit out. None of us have time for this. Y'all
no one has
ready.
No one has the brain capacity to.
No one. We've asked everyone in the office. No one knows how to approach this. So we're just gonna cut it, and if you want it, it's in the original.
Enter at your own risk. Yeah.
But thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much.
And we will see you later on this month in our live.
Yay!
Have a good one and stay safe out there. Bye.
Bye.